Okay, everybody, welcome. I am Janet Gollery McKithen. I'm a member of the steering committee of the Committee for Racial Justice, and I welcome you here tonight. I'm really excited that you're here. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be with us, and we are blessed and honored that you did. This is the 11th year, 12 years in May. We especially want to welcome you if you're joining us for the first time. And we want to let you know and remind others that we didn't begin with some committee sitting down and planning, let's have a committee for racial justice. We began with an incident. On May 4th, 2011, an African-American member of the Santa Monica High School wrestling team was held against his will by two white teammates, and there were chants of slave for sale and a noose hung nearby. This racially charged incident and the district's slow response were the catalysts for the formation of the committee. We immediately held a workshop and we've held one almost every month since. The Committee for Racial Justice consists of parents of students of Santa Monica High School, students, committee members, and community members and religious leaders. Pre and post-COVID, we held monthly workshops at Virginia Avenue Park only, and now we hold them hybrid. We are involved with the courts, the police, the city, faith communities, and we are still involved heavily with education and now also with housing, with food, as well as many other aspects of life because systemic racism touches all of life. Our mission statement reads as follows: with the conviction that all human beings deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, we are committed to combating all forms of racial injustice, covert and overt, whether individualized or systemic, that may still take place in our community. While racism affects many cultural groups we know, we're especially drawn to focus on the severe impact it has on the African-American community. Tonight's topic is back to what some of our very first workshops were dealing with in education. Seeing what movement has been made in these last 12 years. How committed is SMMUSD to its Black students? What programs have been shown to be beneficial to the achievement of students who have been marginalized historically and in educational systems? And we have some amazing speakers this evening. So I welcome you to the Committee for Racial Justice April workshop. And I believe we have updates now. Is that correct? From Joanne or Robbie?
No, not Robbie. Just do you have an update, Robbie? Okay. So I stand here and the owl picks me up. You all hear me?
Yeah, you got.
Yeah.
They can hear you, but you got to sit
But
down.
we can only see the middle of you.
So the camera's picking you up right now. You see yourself?
Hello. We are, Craig, if you're going to speak, you're going to need to come up. We usually start with some updates. We tend to work in three major arenas: criminal justice, housing, and education. And I was trying to pull up an education thing to tell you about on here, but I can't find it. So what I'm going to say is that those of you who are interested, at UCLA, there's something called critical race studies. They are having a webinar, I believe it is, on CRT, critical race theory, and the misunderstandings, the history, anyway, they're going to be having a webinar on it. If you're interested, as you leave tonight, by your name on the sign-in sheet, just put webinar, and I will email you, if I can read your writing, the email, I will email you the information about it. And Craig, you have to sit here.
Oh.
You have to sit here for them to see you.
Oh.
Craig, Ali's gonna tell you about an opportunity to get.
Yeah, since our discussions with the city has saw fit to issue an apology, a Black apology. And we in the Committee for Racial Justice are wanting to engage with them. And if you want to more or less give some input as to, what this is, in the interest of time, we're asking that you also sign a sheet and, you know, be part of a committee, because this is something I think that's in good faith with the city and with the interest of Committee for Racial Justice. So there'll be a sheet on the back there to address folks who are willing to support and be part of a working group of folks who are concerned about the apology as well as the other incidents and issues that affect African Americans in this community. So yeah, please sign up in the back before you leave.
Okay, this is a man who probably needs no introduction to most of y'all, but Dr. Drati, former district superintendent of SMMUSD, who brought new ideas into the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District through his own experience as an immigrant child from Uganda. He learned that hidden assumptions can either hurt or hinder students' accomplishments. Dr. Drati's introduction of social justice standards to undergird every educational discipline has moved SMMUSD toward more equity. He is now the newly appointed superintendent of Bellflower Unified School District, which we are very unhappy that he is no longer our superintendent, but we are grateful that he did come and do the work that he did do here and started with the social justice standards that helped Committee for Racial Justice to do this work as well. And we're just gonna see what they have to say tonight. I'm you know, just really interested to know in which direction we can go to help our students to move forward. So without further ado, I guess I'll leave it to you, Dr. Drati. Is our SMMUSD committed to our African-American youth? That's the question of the hour.
How you guys? Thank you for inviting me to this. Let me first ask before I kind of launch. I know we have Dr. Eure and other folks that are going to speak there. How should we want to do this? Do I just talk, or do we tag team it, or are they going to come in after? Because I don't want to monopolize the time either. So
And you do your thing and then drop the mic, and if there's nothing else to say, we'll keep our mouths shut and go home.
Hey, Dr. Eure, I definitely miss you, man.
Yeah, I know you do. I miss you too. But I was going to go real quick, and then I wanted to just sit down and hear you answer this question. So tell us, Dr. Drati, how do you answer this question?
All right, great. Well, thank you. Well, thanks for the invite. Thanks for the invite, and for those of you, I think you heard Robbie said I was superintendent for Santa Monica Malibu for the past 6 years, up until this last January when I took over Bellflower Unified. And obviously it was a painful transition. It still is, but I'm hoping the people there understand that it's not abandoning Santa Monica Malibu, but really going after where my a huge part of my heart is, in terms of wanting a legacy around the stuff we're going to talk about today, achievement. So if there's any kind of solace to anything, this Bellflower Unified is in a part of LA County Office of Education. Aside from Inglewood, we have more African-American students in that district than any other district in the county. Right, so that was a huge draw for me, because I wanted to really take some of the concepts, ideas that I have about education to the district, and to elevate them to where it needs. So without going into that, I'm going to kind of just launch into your question here. And I think the question is beyond SMMUSD, and I'll talk just in context about education and the practical nature of how we have to address inequities in education. And I think there's often discussions of theory from universities and different things, but at the end of the day, any research that has to happen has to end up with that teacher that is in front of the students. And then majority of those teachers are predominantly going to be white females. And not that white females White females do a wonderful job in education. They've helped me get to where I am right now in teaching. But I think that's the reality we're dealing with, right? And I'm going to speak to not necessarily 30, but just my experience in the last 25 years as a teacher, as a principal, as a assistant superintendent, and now superintendent in 2 different districts. I've come to just clarity around what has to happen in order for change to occur to address the gaps that we see in education right now, and in particular around African-American students. So let me just start off by this here. As I mentioned, it has to, whatever concepts you have, whether it be the superintendent or the town or you as everything that we have to do has to end in front of that teacher, and that teacher has to understand how to approach the student. So that's practical number 1. That teacher has to feel as if the most important thing they can do is they need to feel that they are able and capable of instructing the students and giving the students what they need. So if you say African Americans, the question becomes, does every teacher know what the African American students need in order for them to be successful, right? So that's the question, and this is where it gets complex. I am bringing these ideas to you as Ben Drati, an immigrant, a refugee of Uganda, a Black male that is in charge of a superintendent. And I bring my values, I bring my understanding of the world, I bring everything I do to the work I do, right? And obviously, you're always in a position to continue to learn more, which I'm constantly learning myself, and I'm readjusting my thinking of things. But the point is, it doesn't matter what you do, you're as a human being, you're going to bring your background, everything you know into your work. So if you're the teacher, your understanding of the students in your class really has to do with your education, your life experience, your assumptions that you have about people. All of that encompasses what a teacher does for students. So how do you take all of this and all the complexities of the world and all that and put it in front of the teacher? Let me ask another question of you before I respond to what the teacher has to ask. If I was to tell the teacher right now, I want you to go solve homelessness in Santa Monica, all right? I'm gonna pause there for a second. Just think about that. If I was to go to the teacher and say, go solve homelessness in Santa Monica, okay? Think about the complexity of that question and the responsibility on the teacher. My hypothesis in all of this is that if the teacher believes they can solve homelessness in Santa Monica, they're going to do and put together strategies, their working knowledge of homelessness, and everything else to implement to solve homelessness. But the caveat is, the only way they're going to go to that level is if they actually believe they can solve homelessness, right? The only way that teacher is going to go do the extra mile and do everything else to try to solve the problems is if they believe they can solve homelessness and they have an idea of how to do it. And if they don't, they're going to go research and try to understand because they believe homelessness can be solved. Okay? Let's just put that to the side and ask the same question. You got to, when you ask the question, your question was about African Americans. Does each staff member and each leader and each person believe that you can solve the achievement gap with the African Americans? That's the initial question you have to ask. Okay? Because only if the answer is yes, then the next question is, well, how do you propose on doing that? What's your thought process on solving that? They then will come with their concepts of what it is. And if they don't know, they're going to continue to ask and research because they believe that African-American students can learn to be able to close the achievement gap. And I speak this, and this could be for any student, any ethnic group, but since the focus is on African-Americans, that's really the question we have to ask. So, so that's what you, so that's the question. Do we believe that? So with that, there isn't, I'm not, in my experience, you're never going to find a person in the school district that will say they don't believe that, you're not going to find a person that's going to say, I don't think African-Americans we can help African-Americans. The achievement gap is what it is. That's just the nature of it. Okay. They won't say that publicly. No one's going to say that publicly. And if you are, you're not going to have a job in the education system because when we interview, when we talk, when we have conversations that are that others can hear, that's the statement that's going to come out. Okay. So I've learned as superintendent not to just believe that, you know, when you ask a question, can all students learn? Everybody says yes. Everybody say yes. So what I've learned to do is look for who is willing to learn and understand, and who is willing to try new things, who is willing to look internally to check their own assumptions. That's how I determine whether somebody is actually willing to, willing to solve the achievement gap, address what African-Americans need or not, because that is what it's going to take. Okay, that is what's going to take. So we have to take every staff member from, no matter what position you hold in the district, you have to ask the question, do you actually believe African-American students can learn at a rate that the other students, like the white students, are learning? And if the answer is yes, we don't stop there. We now look for behaviors, activity, things that people will do to help address that. Okay, and so this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting from my experience. Since everybody says that, but sometimes we are just reticent to do what it takes to address that. Okay. Right now, we have in the system what it takes to solve the achievement gap. There's enough knowledge. There's enough information that'll explain that. This is about getting people to believe. Okay. And I'm not gonna sit here and say, point out to people whether they believe or not. All I'm saying is, it goes back to what I was saying. If I ask the question, no one's gonna say they don't believe. What you got to look for is, are they going to do what it takes? So let me just talk about the things that have to happen in order for that to occur. First and foremost, we need to recognize this is hard. Okay, it's hard, it's complex. It's like solving homelessness in Santa Monica. Okay, so that's number one. You got to acknowledge that. Number two, if you do believe, you start behaving in ways that demonstrate that you believe. So the things that you can do are this here. The state is very clear on what students must know in order for them to be successful in school. And there is a way to measure the achievement gap that we're talking about. There is an assessment that students take that they provide knowledge, whether we agree with what's in the content or not. There's an assessment that students take that are African-American, and all students take, that separates whether somebody is beneath the achievement gap or above it or in it. There's an assessment, there's that. So whether you believe that or not, when you go to the staff and you ask,
it's 7 o'clock.
Excuse that. That's stuff for my work. So don't worry about that. Ignore that. When you go to the staff or anybody in the system and say, I need all of us to plan together and really unpack what it is that students are supposed to know and have a conversation as a team of grade level teachers and all that, when there's resistance to that, issue number one, in order to solve the achievement gap, you have to engage in that, you have to be able to engage in that conversation. Santa Monica Malibu is set up to engage in that conversations. You all have what we call early release and late start for collaboration to occur, teachers to collaborate and talk about student work and understanding what it is that students are supposed to know. You have that. You also have at the elementary school a lot of amount of time, because we hire PE teachers and art teachers to free up teachers to do more collaboration. So not only you have late start and early release, you got, when PE comes into McKinley, Edison, or arts come into these elementary schools, teachers are freed up to engage in these conversations. The question is, are they doing it? That's the question, are they doing it? If there's resistance to that problem, that's a problem, okay? That is very controllable. This doesn't have to do with a person's ability to whether they're, sometimes people think, oh, you got to be a hero teacher. You got to love everybody. You could take kids home and adopt them, and you teach, like just stand and deliver stuff. That's not real. That's not reality. Okay. A hero teacher is one that is given of themselves to collaborate, to talk about what students need. That's what I call a hero teacher. If you want to adopt kids home and take them home and work with them on weekends, God bless you, and that's great. But that is not. But that you will eventually lead to burnout, and it's not. You're not going to balance work-life balance. And there are those that do that. That's awesome. But the key is, are they willing to collaborate? And I'm not going to sacrifice a person's ability to collaborate versus somebody operate like a lone person, just saying, I'm going to do me, and I'm just going to worry about my kids. I'm not going to worry about anything else. So collaboration is one, and everything else, that's number one. Collaboration and understanding what do we expect students to learn. The second thing is, throughout the year, are you coming together to look at student work, to prove to you where things are? I will guarantee you, by the time you give your third midterm or your fourth midterm, you would recognize exactly the split in the gap in achievement. We have the ability to know by the third week of school, fourth week of school, what is happening with that grade level. You can look at referral rates, suspension rates. You can look at performance on activities, student work, all those things. You can distinguish by that third or fourth week whether student grasps it. At that point, is everyone pausing and asking the question, God, I recognize that my African-American students are struggling blank. What specifically has happened this last month that has caused for this gap to exist? If it's not fresh in your mind, what you're going to do? You're going to go right back to the assignments that you provided, the activity you provided, and everything else. And you're going to unpack that and say, what of this is causing the gap to exist still? Is it what we put in front of people? Is it, heck, you can, even in high school, you can even talk to some of the students. Hey, what's happening? We recognize something's happening here. What is causing this? Oh, we recognize their referral rates or this. I mean, if you pause there, you can actually unpack and find out what has happened that's caused that, and find out ideas on how to resolve that or resolve it. Maybe it has to do with the curriculum we are putting students in front of. Okay. When we tell students you need to write a persuasive essay, that is all the standards are asking to do. Learn how to write a persuasive essay. What we choose to write about is up to us. If you want to write on, say, Romeo and Juliet, nothing wrong with Juliet, and that's your deal. Just make sure that every student appreciates Romeo and Juliet in the same way. If not, you got to find something else. Or how to can you engage the students in real life issues that are existing in order to write a persuasive essay? And this is where the social justice standards and everything comes to play, to teach students how the curriculum you're going to teach, is it relevant to the students' lives and lived experiences, in order to ignite their energy and their enthusiasm to learning how to write a persuasive essay. You can ask that question at that time. And then you could probably ask a question every month or every 3 weeks. What I've chosen to do is ask every quarter and get organized enough to ask every quarter of the year. One in August, one in November, one in March, one in June, so that way you can figure out what is happening throughout the year in preparation to plan for the following year. Because if you ask those questions and you actually go through the action research and find out what is happening throughout the year, guess what? You're going to learn how to develop your plans for the following year, right? So I talked about collaboration, number one. Number two, are you reflective? Number two is, are you reflective? Reflecting on the learning experience of every student. Are you pausing enough to ask those questions? That does not require money. It doesn't require additional, it just means you change our behaviors to ask those questions. And then thirdly, don't be afraid of looking internally. So as you are asking these questions, and if you are not understanding, or if there's some kind of cognitive distance that's occurring because what you're seeing versus what you believe in your life experience and what you see before you is not making sense, don't be we can't be afraid of looking internally and say, maybe my assumptions about learning is not working. Maybe I'm really reflecting on that. And I think when you do that, as a human being, you're going to continue to learn through your through experience. Education can really teach people how to look at their own selves. I'm going to end in this way. So I named three things. One is a collaboration around what it is supposed to, around what you expect students to learn, being reflective. And then lastly, be okay to change who you are, okay? And this is top down from superintendent all the way down to the teachers. I don't want to just pick on teachers only. I'm only talking to who makes the magic happen, which is in the classroom. So let me just depart by this before I hand it off to other questions, and to demonstrate how a person can learn through asking these questions and so on. I remember one of the biggest things we did at Clovis West High School in opening up, when I was principal there, in opening up these conversations around inequities and our own biases and getting the staff to change, was when we had I remember this kid, Miguel, was our plan, my vision at the school was to take any student that's come down from the continuation to join Clovis West High, that somebody is going to adopt them as a trusted adult. And we took turns in doing so. So when Miguel came on board from the continuation that I went into Clovis West, I sat down with him and told him, hey, look, I want you to be successful. What do you want out of life? And look, let's just check in on each other once a month. I know this is weird right now. You don't know me yet. I want to get to know you. Just kind of lay down the whole thing. And sure enough, for about 2 months, he was coming in and talking, and we were just topping it up, and he was doing well. Until one day he came in crying in my office. This is my office now, barged in there, insisted to speak to me. He was in tears. He said, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you're going to have to suspend me because I just cussed out one of your teachers. His name was Tom. I'm not going to leave his last name, Tom. I said, what the heck did you cuss out Tom? He said, well, he's racist. I said, what are you talking about? And Miguel was a Latino student too. So what are you talking about? He's not, what did he do that was racist? Well, he told me to take my hat off. Oh, I launched into him. I just launched into him, what the hell, this, I'm not going to say so, but look, we were doing fine. And how dare you use that? You decided to wear a hat. You know the rules at Clovis Way. You're not supposed to wear hats and all that. He said, Dr. Drati, you don't understand. I said, just go to his class. He pleaded with me. He was in tears. Just go to his class right now and see what I'm talking about. I said, God, I expect to go there and see a swastika or something on the walls or something. So I went in there and I took about 10 minutes. Tom was working with students and he was talking to another student, and it dawned on me. I looked around and it dawned on me, I see what Miguel was talking about here. So I'm not going to tell you what I saw right now yet. This is suspense here. So I went to Tom. I said, look, I see where Miguel is coming from. Okay, I said, take a trip with me. He said you're racist. I told him, he said you're racist and this and that. And he said, Ben, you know, I know, Tom, I know you're not racist. But do me a favor, come to lunch with me. Let's go to lunch and we're going to play this game. To get your notepad out, we're going to mark anybody who's out of dress code outside while we walk around. We're not going to bust them. We're going to let them free. But we're just going to, you have the ability to, you walk around with the principal, we're not going to bust anybody. We're just going to take notes. We're going to identify who's out of dress code for what and the color of the person out of dress code. So we spent the lunch documenting it and all that. We came back and we noticed that the majority of what was there was something called a flip-flops. Flip-flops were never, flip-flops weren't, were a part, you couldn't wear dress code flip-flops, but a lot of students, the majority of the students that wore flip-flops were there. We documented it. And the ones that wore hats and stuff like that were okay. So the ones that wore flip-flops were all white, and the ones that wore the other stuff was predominantly Latinx or African-American. So Tom didn't see that. I showed the trend. We compared notes, and we had the similar trends. He said, God, there's a lot of kids out of dress code on this. I said, Tom, I want you to take a gander at that list. Who's out of dress code? The color of the person out of dress code on that. So he identified it, and he looked at it. He looked at me and said, Tom, I went to your class. I counted 8 students out of dress code, and that was 4th period. That means they went through 3 periods without anybody checking them. And majority of students that wore flip-flops were white. He said, and then he turned to me and says, Ben, I get, it doesn't mean I'm racist, though. I get it, but Ben, the flip-flops are a normal thing. People wear flip-flops and this and that, and I don't know why the district has to have flip-flops as a rule anyway. I said, well, so Tom, so you decided to just ignore, not just you, the entire school, predominantly white teachers decided to ignore the flip-flops. And let me tell you something, you're not going to find flip-flop in Black students walking around Clovis West. And if you are, they're probably going to wear socks with it or something. You know, they're not going to be wearing just regular flip-flops like that. You're not going to see that. He said, yeah, oh, Ben, I get it. But I said, that to your life, I'm sure your kids, everybody, you're thinking that's a normal thing, that the district's being ridiculous with it. And I'm sure they're thinking we're being, Miguel thinks you're being ridiculous with hats. Right? But who has the power? Who has the power to decide what is ridiculous, not ridiculous, and an exact punishment for one of the dress codes? I said, and then he thought of Tom, like, oh my God, I don't know. What Miguel's experiencing, frustration, is probably what all the other Latino and African-American students are seeing. So now you see, I have predominantly, how do I get this to predominantly white school that's doing this to our Black and Latino students? And how you said, Ben, that is so wrong. Tom became white male became my biggest advocate in learning about assumptions and personal view on things and how that impacts the outcomes we see in education and discipline and everything else. And then from that point on, he led my diversity and equity initiatives and everything else we did when we started looking at disproportionate data. He led all that and was a facilitator of it. How powerful was it that a white male was the one leading that charge? And it gave me room to operate as a black principal in that conversation, because there's, be honest, there's some things he can say that I can't, right? So anyway, I'll pause here. I'll stop here. I just wanted to demonstrate the complexity of this thing. It goes beyond. I actually think SMMUSD is poised because the staff has gone through DI trainings and all that. I think their key is now, how do you do this to where we go back to the whole collaboration piece I was talking about, the reflection piece I was talking about, and also the questioning piece I was talking about in terms of interventions. Finding out what is happening, and then lastly, the personal reflections. I think SMMUSD has a framework to do that piece. It's about now living it. And this is where you need leaders and different people in place to continue to push on that. And I think you'll be successful. So that's the approach I'm taking to Bellflower, knowing I need to turn people into Toms, right? Not that Tom had all the answers, but he was willing to now listen and say, I want to learn more about what's causing these inequities. At the end of the day, if we get there, then we're gonna address the issues. Anyway, that was a lot. I'm gonna pause here and see what you guys have a question on.
No, and thank you, Dr. Drati. I think from what I'm understanding, we did miss the main room for a moment, but we're back on. I would like to take this time now to introduce Dr. Eure and Mr. Melvyn Miller. And these are our two other panelists for this evening, and then we'll do a bit of exchange of Q&A after that, following their presentation as well. So again, let me start by introducing Mr. Melvyn Miller, who is a native of Inglewood, California. He is a former Division I and professional football player and founder of Sudden Impact, which is a nonprofit educational advocacy and sports development organization. He attended the University of Washington and holds a bachelor's degree in sociology. The other esteemed guest this evening is Dr. Joseph Eure, who is a native of Brooklyn, New York. He's worked since 2001 as both a teacher with LAUSD and the past 9 years as a secondary school administrator here at John Adams Middle School. He's also worked as an adjunct professor at USC's Rossier School of Education, and he attended the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Economics, a Master's in Education from UCLA, and also a doctorate in education from UCLA. Together, both Mr. Melvyn Miller and Dr. Joseph Eure have just recently published a book called The Parents Playbook, which is now on sale everywhere now. And they're going to talk a little bit about that, which the book itself is, just as it says, a playbook. We know that navigating through, I would just say, playground politics and academia at school can be challenging for both students and parents. And so they have prepared a guidebook for us. So tonight they're going to talk a little bit about that, but they're also going to continue this conversation on how we can help to make a more successful outcome for our Black students. So take it away, Dr. Eure and Mr. Miller.
All right, good afternoon. Can y'all hear me on the Zoom? Thumbs up? Yeah, I hear some, and I know y'all can hear me over here. Hey, Dr. I don't know if you know, man, but I can't let my brother think that we heard that last Dr. Drati. Yo, what you were saying was great, but like we lost the last, was it 20 minutes? 15 minutes of your talk. We blacked out. So
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if they want to hear it again, but we'll, it's
No
recorded.
idea.
It was
We
recorded.
had no idea, but I think it'll come out during this presentation.
Yeah.
we need you to just repeat all that. I'm just playing. But we got your point. We got your point. So just so that y'all know on Zoom, what we did was, because we from the hoods over here. So we got a microphone and we got up and we just freestyle. And we did a little talk over here while y'all was talking over there, and now we all come together. So here we are. So good evening, everybody in Zoom. Like I said, I've already kind of said this to the people in the room, but Dr. Drati, what I was saying to the folks here, what I want to say to y'all there, is we, Melvyn and I, we couldn't address this question about the SMMUSD district like Dr. Drati did. He addressed it from the view of a person who's leading the system. 50,000 square feet up in the air, 50,000 feet up in the air. With Melvyn now, we're gonna address it boots on the ground. right? I'm an administrator in a middle school. I'm a father of 4, but I have one who's a kindergarten student in an SMMUSD school. I have another student who came through. He's at SMC right now. Then my senior, my oldest son, he's not to see my oldest son, came through SMMUSD high school, only high school, but graduated, went on to Yale University, and still works in the city of Santa Monica as a professional. So we're gonna come from that angle, boots on the ground. Administrator at the school, I can speak to that a little bit, but the parenting and father role, like Angela Scott, and first of all, thank you, Angela, thank you to this committee for inviting us to come and speak. I have to say, you know, we do a lot of work in Santa Monica. I live here, I work here, Mel works here, and it's always great to, you know, to be welcomed and invited to come and share with your community, you know what I mean? So Angela, you know, I respect you to the fullest, and I see other folks in this room, Robbie, you know, all the work that you guys have done over the years, we really appreciate that. So I just wanted to say thank you before I go on and say the next part of what I wanted to say. So what Dr. Drati was talking about the view from above and the system. I'm gonna say, as an administrator at a school, in the book, and we have a copy of the book here. It's called The Parents Playbook, like she said. But in the book, we have one image, and I'll describe it for you. It's an image of an administrator sitting in a room with a school psychologist, a nurse, 4 or 5 teachers, and parents. And the administrator is sitting by a board, and on the board is written the words IEP, 504, SST, and teacher conferences. Because in my role as an administrator, those are meetings that I facilitate every day. Not just for Black students, but I do it for Black parents, Black students, I do it for everybody, people with money, people without money. But here's the common thread in those meetings that I go to and facilitate. Every single parent who shows up has one thing in common. Every single parent wants one thing when they come to those meetings, when they come to school. They want what's best for their child. That's all they want. The issue is most parents don't know how to navigate the system to get the help that they need. I'm gonna say that again. Most parents don't know, not just the parents who had struggles in school, not the parents who are not highly educated. I'm talking about parents who are judges and doctors and lawyers and engineers and teachers. They don't know either. And all they want is to come to our school and they want us to figure out how we can help their children to succeed. And so Dr. Drati talked earlier about, as a system, this is hard work. Y'all remember him saying that? It's hard, it ain't gonna be easy. That's why the series, and it's not just one book that we have. We have a series of books. This one I showed you deals with or focus on student athletes. We have another one that focuses on English language learners. We have another one that's coming out next month, that deals with social and emotional learning. And then we are partnering up with another brother from the district, and all of these books are coming from Black people in Santa Monica Unified, as a matter of fact. And the last book is a book on college and career pathways that we're doing with Dr. Smith, who's a coordinator here in this district as well. But when we sit at those meetings and we talk to parents and they ask those questions about how to get help for our child, that's why we came up with this book. Because too often parents come, they don't know what to ask for, they don't know what help specifically is available, and they're basically at the whim of the administrators and the teachers in the room. It's very intimidating. Anybody in here ever been in a meeting like that I'm talking about? 504, SSD, or IEP? I see a couple of hands here. I don't know. I see some hands in the Zoom. It's very intimidating.
Yes.
The language that's used. If the person who welcomes you, if the person in the room who's facilitating that meeting is not welcoming, it feels oppositional to some. And all you're there for is to help your child, right? So what we decided to do is it shouldn't be this information about specific strategies and supports that are available in the school systems. That shouldn't be information that's just in the hands of us, the educators and the administrators and the psychologists. It shouldn't just be in our hands. Why would we not share that information with the most valuable people in the meeting? Tell me who's more important in a meeting about a child than the parent? The first teacher. But at no fault of your own, you come in, even if you're educated, this is not your area. You don't know. I gotta stay seated because I get excited. And then they won't be able to see me. You can't put no mic in my hand and tell me to sit down. Can I stand up? Let me see it. Oh, y'all shouldn't have told me that. But I just can't move around though. I gotta stay on. I'm gonna stand, I'm gonna keep my butt seated. How about this? I'm gonna try this. So with the parents' playbook, and I'm gonna pass this to you in a minute, Mike. Now, but with the parents' playbook, we share information that we think needs to be in the hands of parents. Because you know what? Dr. Drati, I was waiting for you to present. I was like, let me see how this brother answered this question. But as soon, Angela, as I saw your flyer to keep it real with you, hey, did we search these people in here? I want to make sure there ain't no tomatoes. Ain't nobody carrying no tomatoes or throw no tomatoes at me for what I'm about to say. Erica, you watch, make sure nobody reach for no tomatoes and throw it at me when I'm about to say. It didn't matter to me. Is the district committed to helping our Black kids? I'm just saying, when I read it, I was like, I had kids in this district. That was my responsibility. When my son was struggling at Samuel High, I showed up. And I told my son, you are not going out there and kicking it at lunchtime. You're going in this math room until I tell you differently. Because like Dr. Drati said, ain't no teacher gonna tell you, no, I don't believe. They don't tell you that. They're not gonna say, oh no, I can't help him. But it's in the actions. That's what he was telling us before he blacked out. It's in the actions. So then you got, and that's what I'm saying, we come at this problem from a different angle. Then where are we, parents? Right. Where are we? My brother here from Bay Pack. Yes, sir, recognize that because I love that, what y'all doing. A Black organization where they're getting parents organized to be more involved and more engaged at the schools. We gotta show up, Black parents. And I know there's a lot of other people in the room, I'm including you too, but right now I'm talking to Black parents of Black children, because that's what we are, and that's what we talking about right now.
I was a teacher for 24 years.
God bless you. 24 years teaching. So that's where we come from. And I remember when this brother came into the office, remember when he came into the office, he gave me visit jams, and he seen what we was doing. And he was like, that's necessary. That's necessary. Because superintendents can work at it from the top down. Right? And he talked about the things that are in place, and reflection, and professional development, and this inquiry process, and that's the systemic approach. But he also shared with us how we need the parents to be empowered. And if you got it coming from him and people like him at the top, and then y'all stepping in the room, and you know and have information about strategies and accommodations and supports that are available for your child or your grandchild, and it's coming from both directions. See, now you're squeezing out those people who ain't really with the program. Because they're not gonna say in his meetings, you're not gonna say nothing. They're not gonna say, oh, I don't care, I don't put that on. They're not gonna say it when the superintendent's in the room or the principal's in the room. But now when the parent comes in the room, Erica?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you dealing with it, you like, wait a minute, my daughter came home and said, you did this, or you said this, or you didn't do this, or you did your boots on the ground. And now you got the parents saying, look, these are the supports that my child needs. And if the teachers don't step up and here's the thing, and this is our approach. It's a team.
Yes.
We're not saying go in there attacking teachers. No, we need the teachers, we need the schools. But we need the students. Look, we can't expect the school to solve all the problems. And then our child come home, have homework, and then when you say, son, did you do your homework? Yeah, I did it, and they're lying to you in your face. And the worst part is, you accept the lie and don't even check and call them on it. When I went up to my son's school, I'm gonna tell you this last story, I'm gonna pass it because I know we're running out of time. Yeah, I'm not feel like a preacher. This is Sunday. Well, when I went up to my son's school, the only reason I had to go up to his school is because one, he wasn't listening to me, and two, he halfway lied to me. Because he's got an F. He was homeschooled all the way through elementary, middle school. His first experience on the public school property was San Juan. In his freshman year, he was doing well, and he started getting an F in math. And his mom told me to get on the teacher. Teacher this, teacher. I'm like, hold on a second. Are we sure it's the teachers? I said, son, have you gone to your teachers, your math teacher, and asked for extra help? No, I haven't gone. All right, so that's what you do. I need you to go ask your teacher for extra help. I'm done after this story. I'm gonna let Mel take it. Ask for extra help. A couple of days later, I said, what did the teacher say? Oh, Pop, I forgot. All right, strike one, right? No problem. I need you to go and ask the teacher if she offers extra help. Because I got a feeling, son, that you understand the concept she's teaching you now, but there's some gaps. There's some gaps that are some math gaps that you have from the homeschool. Go talk to the teacher. A couple of days later, all right, son, what the teacher said? Oh, Pops, I forgot. That's true. Now, I'm not a game player. I'm a quiet dude, I'm laid back. Well, one thing I don't do is play a whole bunch of games, especially with my kids. Education is too important to us. So I didn't say nothing else to him. I showed up. I took off from work. I was working at LA Unified at the time. I took off from work. That's the year when the sister opened this meeting up, 2011. And she talked about the wrestler and that racial incident that started this organization right here. That's the year I'm talking about, 2011. This is when this happened. I show up at the school, took my son to the teacher's face, and I said, yo, now tell me in front of her, did you do what I told you to do? Yeah, he was sweating a little bit. The teacher was sweating a little bit too. But she didn't know what, but it wasn't that kind of funny. Long story short, come to find out, Dr. Drati, that the teacher stayed every day at lunch. Listen to what I'm saying. The teacher stayed every day at lunch to help kids with their academics. It was my son who was not going to take advantage of the extra help. MECHA, the Mexican organization out of UCLA, they came in and provided tutoring. So the teacher was there every day, MECHA was there, and there was a third program, I forget what it was. It wasn't that the system was, I'm just telling you, I'm sharing my story. It wasn't that the system was failing my son. It's that me as a father and my son wasn't doing his part. So we gotta keep it real when we talk about this stuff. Our kids gotta be held accountable, our students we have to hold them accountable. Parents, the series that we have on the top is called Courage to Change. Because like Dr. Drati said, this work is not easy. Somebody trying to get into the Zoom over there. Just saying. This stuff is not easy. And the reason why we call it Courage to Change, parents, and this is where I might step on some toes. I don't know who's in that Zoom meeting. But sometimes we would rather watch the game, kick back, legs up, then we would sit down and make sure that the homework is done, that it's done correctly, that it was submitted on time. Because it's easier that way. It's easier to do that. But if we seriously want to help and support our students and close the gap, you got the systemic big picture approach that Dr. Drati was talking about. He's talking about what the systems need to do from above. What we here to share is what we as families, as members of the community, what we can be doing on the ground. Right? Showing up to PTA meetings. Or showing up, if you ain't going to PTA, at least go to BayPack. Right? Right. They're going to be addressing those issues through BayPack. But show up somewhere. Don't just leave it for the schools to do everything. The school's gonna handle everything. And you kicking back. And I'm not trying to say you just kicking back. We work hard. I get it. There's parents out there, single mothers and single fathers or whatever, and 2 jobs and this, and that. I'm not minimizing that. But at the end of the day, I'm also not gonna leave no area for us to give excuses as to why we can't be there to support our children and close this gap. This gap been here for 9 years. They've been talking about this gap for 9 years. And they was talking about the gap for 30 years before I got here. Something gotta change, and we gotta have the courage to change it. I'm gonna pass this to Mel if there's anything you wanna add, my brother.
And I can add that thing about the book. Thanks for hearing our story. We appreciate it.
All right, that was great. Let's give everybody a round of applause. Right, I love your approach when you talk about Dr. Drati or whoever our next superintendent will be. Hopefully will work with us from the top down. Boots on the ground, and as the founder of the African American Parent Student Staff Support Group in '92, that's still supposed to be going strong. I just texted the leader and said, I want y'all showing this video to your parents at your next meeting. So I appreciate that. I really do. That has been my song for a lot of years. I'm one of those parents. I mean, I'm an alumni at Heart, my whole family. And so I appreciate and understand that we have to do our part. But there is a commitment from the district that we pay our tax dollars to have a part as well. And so we're here to address it all tonight. We're just here, because I guess a lot of us are still trying to figure out what's up with the achievement gap. What is the problem? We know the data, we know the numbers, we know what's up. So where are we at with that, and why is it not really working? I mean, it's gotten better from time to time, and I love the fact that you guys have these books. I mean, these are a great benefit, a great resource. So we need to have these in our library over here at Virginia Avenue Park and on all campuses.
I just wanted to share my own experiences having been a substitute teacher for
As a substitute teacher for LA Unified for 24 years, you know, I agree with what you were saying. When the parents came into the classroom and would talk to me as there was the substitute teacher, something like that, I could tell how they were motivating their student or their child, and that really worked. I really was impressed with any parents who would volunteer or show up and say what their concerns were. you know, and those students did very well in the classroom. And I did also notice the lack of parental support for some students, that they got away with a lot of misbehavior and not paying attention and talking to their friends and just goofing off and disrupting the class and things like that. So it really does make a difference when the parents, if they can, you know, come in and observe what their student is doing in the classroom.
She's right, she's right. My kids know I stayed in the classroom. The kids on campus, first they was upset that their mama was on campus. And then I had to start ducking them because they would find me to get money. Mom, you got a couple of dollars? No. So anyway, I just want to say this as the founder of African Parent Group, but I'm an activist in Santa Monica. I thought this one would be packed, Dr. Eure. I really did. I thought for sure. I went to BSU. I tried to get BSU to come and pack it out because I get a lot of calls and a lot of questions. This was the place to answer a lot of that. So we'll see.
Thank you, sir. But I'd like to come through this with a little bit of historical perspective. You know, before there was a Dr. Drati, we found ourselves embroiled in a battle with the achievement question, the gap between African-American students and white students. And we could see that there were problems, and we tried communicating with them as to those problems, and we got dismissed. Then they bring in a doctor, Pedro Noguera, in fact, who I had known, you know, from previous studies. And he said literally the same thing we were saying. And all of a sudden now they put in a program consistent with that. What I'm suggesting to you as you speak, because you are quote unquote the boots on the ground, what is it that we can do to address? Because I'm not a doctor, but I have read Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. I'm familiar with what the school system, and Santa Monica High School is probably right up there with frustrating that effort in terms of addressing young Black boys. So I'm asking specifically, as a person who has boots on the ground, what is it that parents can do to address that hostility, simply because I'm not a doctor, but I have that concern about my child.
George Baypack. Blank, come on, Jacob. So, let this brother talk, and my colleague, and Erica, yeah, because they addressing it as we speak. They addressing it as we speak. Tell them about Baypack and what y'all doing.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Blaine Poe. I'm the chair of Baypack.
And that is.
Excuse me, yes. BAAPAC, the Black African American Parent Advisory Committee. Erica Leslie is co-chair.
Never heard of it.
And that's why we're here. And anyone that I talk to, starting with my brother Malibu in his background there, we're a new group. What we have found, you know, in the time we've been together formulating, developing our bylaws and all of this, so we're still new, is one of the key problems is just conveyance of information. Just not knowing, as Dr. Eure had said, not knowing. Sometimes educated people who, you know, exactly. But like you go to the doctor's office, you don't know medicine, you gotta go to the doctor, they explain it. You go to a school, they explain the process. A lot of our people just don't know. So what we view our role as one of our key roles, and I'll let you add on to this, but one of our key roles is just to be conveyors of information, to have sort of to be a conduit between what happens in the school, like my daughter goes to jams where Dr. Eure is, and parents out in the community.
Not wanting to get into a one-on-one, but does this address curriculum?
Yes.
In any sense?
Sure.
Okay.
And part of it is to listen to what parents' concerns are and then begin to bridge that. How can we help step into the breach where there are gaps and so on to begin to convey information between school administrators on one hand and parents in the community on the other. Erica, anything you want to add?
It's not just the administration, it's also policymakers as well. is, well, I'm not gonna say it in the sense that everybody knows. I've been dealing with special ed for the last 18 years, because my oldest son is a special ed student. However, not all parents know that information or know how intimidating, like Dr. Eure said, it is intimidating to be in a meeting, in an IEP, and you call in community members and, you know what I'm saying, to have backup, because it's not easy. It's not easy. BayPAC is just a conduit for everybody, because it's not the same. You can't be on campus like you used to be back in the day. Since COVID, everything gets locked up. You can't go and just jump up on campus. Those things are over. And you know what I'm saying? We have a whole new thing to work with now. So BayPAC is that conduit. So we can share these conversations, this information, so we're not all in silos. Because once COVID hit, we're all in silos. It's no longer, okay, parents don't know each other and see one another drop our kids off. But that's the end of it. We're not even talking as much because people are scared to talk to one another because of COVID and all this other things. We have to get past all of our stigmas and all our biases, and we have to open up and share each other's experiences, because otherwise we're taking advantage. There's no other way to put it.
Erica, can I ask you, would you explain, how do you reach out to the parents? How do you know, or do the parents are gonna find out what you're doing and what you're doing? And is there outreach from the groups to the community? How do you find the parents who are the ones who need you?
Well, we reach out through Peach Jar. We also
So it
word
goes
of
through
mouth.
Peach Jar to all the students?
All the students,
parents,
we
I
try
mean?
to identify all of our African-American students to Peach Jar. We also share the information that is given to us by Dr. Eure about the books. We share that amongst ourselves. And we also reach out to the parents that we already know. You know, and it's just like a daily chain. You know, we just keep on going until we get, hey, I reached out to PCG, all the different, you know, and I'm messing this up, you don't have to forgive me.
AAP triple SG.
Okay, see, I'll go in a whole nother way, I'm like AA, triple set triple SG.
Lewis Alexander, African Parent Student Staff Support Group, Lewis and Shirley County.
Yeah, we reach out to them as well.
Next
so
year,
that-
Angela.
Yeah, so that everybody can share the information amongst ourselves and beyond.
But yeah, information. We can just get that out. Anything else we do is great, but as a start, if we can just be purveyors of information. Because my observation, again, through BayPAC and talking with people like Erica, my wife is also a member of BayPAC.
And Angela.
And thank you, Angela, yes. Angela Scott up there, also a member of BayPAC. Information tends to get sort of sidelined, or it remains confined in little groups or little boxes. And what we need to do, in effect, is sort of break down some of those walls and let that information flow, almost like water, but allow it to flow. So there's more I can say, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Robbie, I do have some questions online too.
I think right here.
Oh, I said I do have questions. Can we?
No, we really kind of wanted, we have 2 more here, right?
Oh, okay.
2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll do the ones online. But
Okay.
Dr. Drati, did you want to reply to that right now?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just speak to, you talking about the question or respond to what Dr. Blaine and Pope and Erica Leslie mentioned?
Just do your thing. Whatever you want to do, sir, you are a speaker.
All right, so let me just add something to what Dr. Pope and Mrs. Leslie has mentioned, and I thank them for being a part of helping to establish BayPAC. So they mentioned everything that they're going to do, and I think on the grounds, for example, what Dr. Eure was talking about, that is absolutely necessary to work on the grounds, and BayPAC is to help do that. But the design behind BayPAC is not only to provide information about what to do immediately, and there's a lot more for them to work towards that on. The second portion is, how do you bring the system, how can we learn from our parents in terms of what is happening to them? So when Dr. Pope and Erica Leslie were formulating BayPAC and all that, we took them through almost a year and a half of training and just learning about the district and the process and also the theory of action that we're trying to implement to support the African American students in an effort to get also our parents to be able to ask the right questions and advocate properly in order to shift the districts towards a certain way. So imagine, we're writing curriculum about the social justice standards, and we're developing this curriculum to help our students and to make education more relevant towards their lived experiences. If that's the design, that's the plan, and our parents are not seeing that happening, it goes back to what I was saying before. We can put something on paper, but if it's not happening in the classroom, it's not going to happen. So imagine the superintendent or other principals, whatever, having a chance to talk to parents in a setting to talk about the plans for all students, and particularly African Americans, and then to demonstrate, to explain, okay, this is what's happening and this is what's supposed to be going on. What happens if they say, Dr. Drati, I know you're talking about this, but we're not seeing that happening? What is that? What is it? Just imagine what that does to help inform where we are in implementing any initiative, and how powerful it is that they are able to speak to the board or other people about stuff we say is happening but not happening, and then to help us shift in that way. So they're strategically placed to be able to be voice to support what the system is and not doing, and also to advocate properly, and then also to work closely with people like Dr. Eure and other principals and all that, with information that parents need immediately to help support their students. So Dr. Eure is right. We want to squeeze this thing from top, the sides, and to the bottom to eventually change the system. The only thing I'm going to add about the parent, I love the parent engagement and all that, and it's powerful, but we have to be realistic that you're going to have parents that are not going to be able to do that, whether it be because of conditions at home, having to just live life and not being able to be supported, not having somebody at home watching and helping, or having the know-how to navigate through the system. How does the system step in there on behest of the parent? And I think we can always provide some wraparound services to support those students that don't have that kind of access. But decisions have to be made in terms of funding, and we don't have unlimited funds, right? When you say I'm going to support this group of students, guess what's going to happen? Somebody's going to say, well, heck, what about us? What about this? What about that? And all of a sudden you run into conflict. So I can say all kinds of examples of how just stating, let's support these students and put money towards this way, how that's perceived and eventually possibly attacked from people that don't understand and think somehow African Americans or students that need are getting over, or they're getting supports that others are not, that is not equitable kind of a concept. So just imagine what that does to a board or superintendent or the principal's ability to move the ship forward. So this is why it is necessary to have parent advocates and people involved in the system, so we can explain why certain things will have to happen in order to support all the students. Anyway, I know that's a lot, but I just wanted to add those pieces to some of the comments Dr. Eure and Dr. Pope and Mrs. Leslie talked about.
No, that was great, Dr. Drati. I appreciate it. But let me just say this real quick. And I see your hand up, but we still have Gina's 3, Ola's 4, and then you're 5. Jerry. And we're going to do those. Yeah, we were going to do those after we do the people in the room, people who showed up in the room. I just want to say this, and when we founded African Parent Student Staff Support Group, founded by the parents, for the parents and the students and the staff, we were supporting everybody. We disseminated the information. People were getting the information and still not coming to meetings, still not showing up, just like not showing up now. I mean, it is a constant battle, but when you talk one-on-one, this is what I've learned, to a person and encourage them, it's almost like it's a lot of work. Like Erica said, I mean, it's COVID and everything, people aren't coming out, people don't want to do what we used to do. But you still have to kind of try to, everyone in this room can talk to a parent about what you've heard tonight. And if you know someone that has school-age children, you need to get to this meeting, you need to see this video, you need to hook up with Dr. Eure and his partner. I mean, you need to help people to get that assistance that they need, because I think there's a lot of healing that needs to take place in this district and in this city, period. And in order to make people feel comfortable, they shouldn't have to feel comfortable about coming to school for their kids. But I know for a fact, when I ask people at reunions, you know, why don't you come to the school to see about your kid? They've had bad experiences on campus when we went to school. So they don't feel comfortable going up there. Or I go up there, I'll turn the school out. Well, you can't have that attitude. You need to come, because I'm up there every day helping your child. And Mr. Maurice Maxwell is up there every day. And then I just want to say this, when CRJ started, we fought very hard to get a young man in his organization. Some of you probably know Fluke Flooper with Village Nation. Village Nation, after, you know, millions and millions, I won't say millions, but okay, multiple times, trying to get the district to bring in Village Nation to really reach the kids where they're at. Finally, we got a few dollars for the district to bring in Village Nation, and we had it in the auditorium. The kids told us, and I will say that my deceased husband sat there and cried and said if they had something like this when I was coming up, instead of burning trashes in the 60 on campus at Samuel High, I would have been a better student. So that's how effective it was. So you do have to listen to the kids, and you do have to try to reach them where they're at. And Village Nation reached those children. They really did. So we got to think about all of that. So Gina, you're gonna have to come up, because this Corey, they're not letting me run today. Thank you, Jesus. My knees can't take it. Okay, tired. Come up. You got it.
Okay, I wanted to kind of make a comment to, you go by doctor? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, but I just feel that Santa Monica High had really let my family down. So I do not, I mean, I wouldn't, like, you know how you refer someone, I wouldn't be the type to refer as a parent. Because I know a lot of times I was one of the parents that was always at the school, you know, and I saw my daughter go from where I was sending her report cards all over the world to just F's for different things. And I mean, I remember one time she had to take summer school for math. And I knew that there was something wrong because that's her favorite subject. So she went to the summer school and had to do it and just got like an A+. So I knew that there was something wrong. A lot of times, I don't think Santa Monica wants to feel that maybe some of their teachers do not care for our kids. You know, they don't like our kids. And I mean, I don't like these kids. It just be
It's 8 o'clock.
That's what I keep talking.
Yeah. So, you know, I think until Santa Monica, and I really like what Robbie was saying about Village Nation, where we were all on the bandwagon, just really just pushing for this program to come in. I was so excited, but it didn't come in the way we wanted it to come in. And I just felt like this school is so wealthy. Why couldn't it spend the money so that our kids could get this benefit? But I've always felt like Santa Monica really never invest the way that they should in our kids. You know, and even when we go to IEPs and stuff like that, we don't have any like support if you don't know a whole lot about IEPs. Because, I mean, my kid had an IEP, but her IEP was not for, her IEP was not for education. Her IEP was for something different. So she was smart. You know, but I think she was a little smarter than some of the teachers. And so they sort of persecuted her for that and really just, you know, just did a lot of things that weren't really kind. And so I just, you know, have a problem when they talk about supporting these different programs coming out of Santa Monica High. I'm like, no, these kids still aren't gonna get what they need until they redo the whole curriculum and redo some of these teachers that are so tendered in that they need to retire and get some new blood. And plus, we need a lot more people of color.
Yeah, not just the sister real quick.
Yes, you can.
We'll do this quick. Thank you, sister, for sharing. And sorry that your daughter had, that you and your family and your daughter had that experience at Santa Monica School. That sounds horrible, but what I will say, sister, is an organization like BayPAC, organization like Sister Robbie, the African American Parent Group, we need sisters like you who have that experience, who can bring that back and share it with those who are doing the work now, so that we can, like Dr. Drati was saying, so when the school was saying we're doing X, and through these organizations and your story, your experience, you can help us to check that and say like, well, that's really not happening. We're not feeling welcome, that's your wording, right, at the meetings, or I don't feel like that, because it sounds like it might be some social emotional stuff that.
It could be a little bit.
Right, like, well, just in terms of your daughter, and because one of the things that with the social emotional book, it's like just treating kids like they're human beings. And treating them that way and connecting with them that way. That's what you were saying, like, you felt like some of the teachers didn't.
I'm sorry, I need to add something. I'm sorry.
All right, because I gotta be out here at 8:30, I'm telling y'all right now. So I know that. Going on at 8 o'clock. Mine's going up at 8:30, my wife is on my head. I'm just telling y'all right now. Yeah, we ain't got much time.
So for 10 years, I worked for a homeless agency. And so some of the kids that were going to Santa Monica High School, I knew that their families were homeless. And so maybe they're sleeping in the class because they weren't getting the right amount of sleep. Or maybe they're hungry because, you know, they are not getting fed.
Right.
But a lot of times, we don't really need to come in and tell our business like that.
Right.
You know, they just need to say, oh, this kid's a little hungrier, give him some food.
That's right.
I mean, I give food like it's nothing, but don't make it be so shameful
Right.
for this kid, like here's napkin. But I mean, I know for a fact that the least of us, they know it, and they just really don't want to deal with it a lot of times.
Thank you.
And, you know, Dr. Eure, Gina's been with us from the beginning.
Yeah.
And she did reach out, and she did scream out, and she did talk about it, and nothing happened.
Yes.
And so, you know, that's
The
the
struggle
question.
continues.
The struggle continues,
That's right.
and everybody has to get involved and get on the same page. And let me just say, with IEP, when my son was in school, he's in, you know, his sister's at well, she graduated from Howard, he's back there now. But the two teachers that were his teachers, we discovered, because it was a situation where he didn't know his S from his P's, you know, he was seeing that backwards.
Yeah.
But the teachers were not speaking to each other. They were angry with each other. They weren't talking. And I had to give this whole speech. How y'all gonna help my son and you guys aren't talking? You guys aren't talking. Who's helping my son? Anyway, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
everything is not always perfect. This is all they can.
Anybody online?
Okay.
But you still have people here.
I know.
He was,
The question.
It's past 8 o'clock.
Okay, we're gonna make it quick, Joanna. We're gonna do this. Okay, can we just, do you have something quick, sir?
No.
Nothing quick?
But not as quick.
No,
as
but they
anyone
next,
else.
he was after them.
you had.
He was, when Ola gave up her.
But then Dr. Pope was next.
Do you want to speak up?
Yeah.
Now you come up, please.
I can.
I wish this mic was. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, my issue is, I'm a grandma.
Yay for grandma.
Okay, they had no grandfather, they're dead. And I let the teachers know, I was in every school, my grandsons went to school.
The oldest one graduated at 23 from Humboldt State, went to Spain, learned Spanish, she's traveled 20 different countries. The second one graduated from San Francisco State at 22 years old. 10 days after his brother graduated from Humboldt State, they went to Santa Monica High. I let the people know at Santa Monica High, I'm their grandma. I'm not robbing anything, I'm not stealing anything, but when I come to speak on behalf of my grandsons, the mama might not do it. She's deceased now about 3 years, but she was alive. Mothers and fathers don't always get it the way grandma did. I said, when I come, if I say I want to speak to my grandson, because children, we're grown-ups. Children don't think. If you do something that I didn't deal with before he went to school, if he's in that class, give me 15 minutes. I want you to call him out of that class. If I want to come there and say, did he get to school on time? I want somebody to go on the computer and tell me. But when I get there, same person working today, are you that guardian? No, I'm that grandma. Sometimes these people don't know the difference between guardian and grandma. If you want to call me both, you can call me both. But I let them know, as long as I can walk, as long as I can talk, I'm gonna be in this school for my grandsons. And that's how they graduated college. They knew I was grandma. Well, mama said, I'm not your mom. I'm your grandma. Well, my daddy said, well, honey, I'm not your daddy. That's your daddy. I'm your grandma. So that's what grandparents should take charge of. I'm not gonna let them overrule the school or the teachers overrule what grandma has to say about it. And I want to see the report card. Every report card come out. I gotta see it. I had to see it. Yeah, my grandmama raised me, so I know. That's fine.
All right. Jerry Rubin, Santa Monica resident, former, sadly, a high school dropout in Philadelphia. And understand how hard it is for teachers and administrators and parents. I don't have any kids of my own. But I always want to say, I really appreciated Dr. Drati when he was superintendent. And I wish he could handle both jobs right now. I hope they can hear me, and I appreciate Reverend Janet McKitchen and all the good work from the church at Ocean Park for years and years and years. And I appreciate our school board, because I went to a lot of meetings, had some disagreements. I still think they ought to restore that Muir Woods mural there for the environmental message. But other than that, and I know my late wife who passed from pancreatic cancer, still hope that would happen. But I really appreciated Dr. Drati when he went out of his way to come to my late wife's birthday a few years ago and bought her a bottle of wine, and I'll always cherish and love him for that. Thank you, Dr. Drati. I love you, man. So all I wanted to ask was, in this current political climate of racist stuff, Donald Trump didn't start racism, but he sure is escalating, and I see it each and every day. And I'm just wondering how the school board and educators are dealing with this climate now that looks like, I mean, it's still on the agenda, hot and heavy, and maybe even getting worse, and how we're going to deal with that. That's my question. And I thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Mr. Rubin. Dr. Drati.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, it's good seeing you. Thanks for coming to this. I know I know that I keep up with you on Facebook, so I'm glad to see that you're doing well. Your question is an important one that we are all wrestling with right now. So, but I do think education can be the mechanism or the idea that brings people together. If leveraged right. Whether you're a Republican, you're a Trumpster, or you're I wouldn't even say Republicans are synonymous with Trump, but let's just anyway. But anyway, the point is, it doesn't matter where you come from, whether you're a parent of an LGBTQIA student, or you are a parent of an African-American parent or Latino parents, or any, we all want the same things. We all want the same things. We want our students to be successful. And to me, that is how you, if leverage right, that's how you bring people together. So the way I'm looking at it is, you gotta be strategic in how you approach these things. So Bellflower is actually situated in a place where we're right next to Orange County, and then you have LA. So so I have elements of both that community. You have some people that are, very conservative in their views about education and what we should teach, not teach, and so forth. But even those people, when I talk about equity and when I bring forward some ideas that we try to incorporate, I'm not taking something away from anybody. I'm saying, this is what we're doing for your child. And when we describe what we're trying to do, they can't deny that it's good, right? So, for example, ethnic studies is a curriculum that the state wants everybody to graduate with, and SMMUSD went ahead, or everybody, in establishing curriculum through the social science department to approve the grad requirement for ethnic studies through the social science class and so on. So they did wonderful work on that, right? But in Santa Monica, Malibu, we're liberal. Okay, you can boldly state this is what we're doing. Guess how I have to word, but the content is good. Everybody appreciates it. But guess what? How I'm wording it in Bellflower. I'm saying, let's teach cross-cultural skills. Teach cross-cultural skills, right? It's a nuance. It's the same as the outcome what you see with ethnic studies, but I'm stating it that way just to let people know, look, this is for everyone, including the white students that need these skills for them to survive in America in the shifting world. So those are but through that effort, guess what? My goal is to bring these people into be able to have a conversation around cross-cultural skills and why that's necessary. And when we are actually doing that, I will have their ears to it. And this is where you start training them on, this isn't a threat to you. And in fact, this is a benefit for your kids and for your whole family and for the whole community that we do this. And I'm able to demonstrate that. So I guess what I would look at it is, as scary as it is, you have to take it as an opportunity to bring people together and talk about racism in a way that is understood by everyone, including the white students and the students that these parents are afraid that somehow we're going to make them feel a certain way by learning about American history. So, and then secondly, the kids, the students, they want to know. They're not that movement that you see in Florida and all that's limited. Okay, that's limited because the college students, the high school students, and the elementary school are coming up because of social media and everything that's going on around them. You're not going to be able to hold that back. And by the way, some of their own kids are gonna change their views and all that, and then all of a sudden, what are they going to do then? So I'm not too intimidated by that. In fact, I'm looking at this as one of those situations where, yeah, it looks like we're losing, but essentially, this is going to shape how we move forward from years to come. So we just have to take advantage of it and embrace it.
Okay, Dr. Drati, we have one more here and we got 3 more. So let's go, guys. Come on.
Okay, yeah.
We gotta get out of here by 8:30.
Time's running. I'll be fast. I have a 2-part question. First question, just for the audience, those that are still here. What is the most successful, academically successful demographic in the country?
Asian.
Wrong. African immigrants.
Yep.
European Americans. They beat Asian Americans and any other subset. African immigrants dominate academically. Going straight up to the highest levels, to doctoral level, PhDs, and medical doctors, and so on and so forth. So what we're confronted with here, my friends, is the Black community in the United States is bifurcated. It's split into two parts. And we often engage in discussions about those struggling sort of in the lower half. But I think to complete this discussion, we also have to look at the success strategies of those in the upper half.
That's right.
The question I have now, the second part of my question for Dr. Eure, Dr. Drati, and so on, is what forum do we have to engage in discussion with our brothers and sisters about what they're doing to succeed? In other words, not all of the discussion has to be directed at Dr. Eure in his role as education administrator, although that's an important role. Not all of it has to be directed at our parents, although they're critically important as well, but also just other people in our community who have that knowledge, who have those success strategies, and are putting them into effect. In short, what can we learn from our own? What can we learn from our immigrant communities here? The skills, knowledge, and abilities that they bring from which we might learn. So I just put that out there. I don't necessarily have an answer, but I think that question has to be addressed. So I just leave.
Yep.
So that's why, yeah, we made this topic tonight, but those are probably maybe some workshops you can have in your individual parent groups. But okay, Angela, so we want to do the 3 online and then it looks like.
I do. Okay, yeah, I do. Let me start with what was written in the chat. I have 2 in the chat, and then Ralph, I'll go to you last. So that's my third one. The first one is from Layla Taslimi. She's wondering if you, Dr. Drati, or even Dr. Eure, recalls the most recent stats from SMMUSD of the number or / percentage of Black teachers in PK through 12 that we have right now. And then what are the current strategies for attracting more, from a recruitment background to get them more desirable for our district? So what is, number one, what is our current population of Black African-American teachers pre-K through 12? And then number 2 part, what are we doing to recruit more into the district? So that's the first question.
Hey, Dr. Eure, I'll give it a crack and I'll have Dr. Eure speak real quickly. How you doing? Good hearing from you, Layla. I know it's been a while, so I miss you as well. What I will say is I don't have the exact numbers. We need more African American teachers, not only in Santa Monica, Malibu, even where I am right now. This is a systemic issue. It's a systemic issue. We have shortages in teaching, and it's going to get harder and harder moving forward. So I know we say let the teachers retire, but just I want all you know that is every superintendent's nightmare right now. How do you replace teachers that are because a lot of them are retiring in droves? So how do you backfill that? Right now we have everybody has a sub shortage, so that we can't even look there anymore. So it's tough. But even further, the amount of African Americans that are going into education is just not that many in the pipeline. I think the ones Dr. Pope actually did mention when he mentioned about the success rate of some of the African Americans that have gotten it. A lot of these families actually do very, very, very well, but they become doctors, lawyers, engineers, and teaching, it just becomes a lowly type of position for a lot of people. So this is really about growing our own. To me, the strategy has to be where you create opportunities to like CTE programs that are around education. And I know, Layla, you have a preschool, for example, there that you host, but working together with our district to create pathways for students to understand and have experiential learning around teaching and learning, and also tying into the college, SMC, and other colleges to continue to encourage our students to talk about education and the importance of it. And then lastly, what I'm going to try to do is go to some HBCUs and find teachers there. I think we have a team going from Bellflower next. In fact, they're out there right now just to try to acquire and find out who wants to come to California. I think we have a great selling point here. Our challenge is just the cost of living is always going to be a barrier. And the trouble is a lot of African-American families that do make it that do make it are going rightfully so are going to be, they just don't have the ability to say, I'm going to live in LA or I'm going to live in Santa Monica and earning X amount and go teaching because I love it. That's just, it's not reality because they don't have the luxury to say I'm gonna live in a 1-bedroom apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, sharing roommates and things like that. It's just tough. So that's the challenge we're in. I think our best strategy is to really grow our own from within. So there's a lot of ways to introduce people to education. What I'm doing in Bellflower, for example, this is my goal. It's not done yet, but I'm meeting with Chamber. I'm meeting with a lot of different companies. I meet with the city manager and different people. We're going to establish where before a student graduates from Bellflower, they either have to have two things, either an internship with a company of interest, or have some kind of or certification for culinary or some CTE program, technology or something. So at least they have exposure to the working force, and then they understand it. So if we were to establish a CTE teacher education program and then put students in internships and things like that to go work in preschools or work in to shadow and work with principals and work with superintendents and work with teachers, I think they might find it more interesting. So there are ways you can entice people, but we have to organize ourselves to do so.
Just one sentence, Dr. Drati. We have 3 questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Santa Monica, this came up before. We need incentives for our teachers because LA has like an incentive. If you go to school in LA and you come back and work as a teacher, you get some type of incentive. Santa Monica doesn't have that. And the salaries really ain't all of that. But is that something that we should push at CRJ? Push to our school board?
Yeah, it's always important to attract teachers and all that kind of stuff and provide incentives. Just know LA Unified is loaded. So they are loaded more than you think. So they command every direction that the state goes in. And they're just too big to fail. So they could always command more resources than they can afford because the state will always bail them out. They're kind of like the bank, right? Too big to fail. So they're gonna command a lot of resources that the local districts around them can't do. That's just the nature of it. But that is an opportunity to provide incentives. Ways you guys can provide some of that is by working with working with, I know Erica Leslie there, by working with what do you call it, the groups that deal with rent control, incorporating rent control and pieces like that to say if a teacher lives in Santa Monica, they'll be in a rent control. The city and other people, residents, can help bring people in. So let's say if you go to say Hampton or Tuskegee or and you go bring people in, come to California, you live on the beach. Oh my God, how much it costs? $8,000 for rent? Hell no, I ain't going. No, you want to be able to say, no, the school district has a plan so you can actually live in Santa Monica on the beach. And so those are things that I think as a community, you can come together.
Thank you. Okay, Angela, go on. I'm sorry.
Okay, the next question, and Ralph, you'll be my last one. The next question is from Kariatu CB. She said, her question is, what is the protocol for dealing with a student that has been called the N-word? There's a lot of emotional and social well-being and support. That's very important. And it also may affect the performance of the child who was aggrieved. So what is the current protocol right now? Because I know that is happening very often. I'm hearing a lot about it at Samuel Hyde, but I know it happens at jams as well. So I'm just wondering, what is that protocol?
I guess,
let him speak to it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when you say it, the first picture in my mind is a white person saying it to a black person, but the reality is that may not be the case, right? So the first thing we have to do in any case like this is establish the facts. Right. What was said, what was the context? So I can't just a general answer, but we will certainly investigate it, take it serious. One thing that the district, wants us to do, Santa Monica, is also do the EOC paperwork to make sure that we're documenting these incidents, and there has been an increase in incidents. I know in jams that I personally had to deal with. Whether it's the N-word or monkey, is certain terms and stuff that's just proliferated this year that I've never seen in the 9 years that I've been working in the district. But we certainly investigate it, we take it serious, and we establish the facts, and then we deal with it, based on what we come up with.
The only thing I would add to that is we can certainly deal with it that way, but right now we are dealing with not just in Santa Monica, Malibu, everywhere. There just seems to be a lot of conflict between our Latinx and African American students, at least in the neighboring districts I'm working with right now. It hasn't spilled over to Bellflower yet, but I'm sure if you remember the 90s, there was a huge conflict between African Americans and Latino students that was taking place. We think that's resurfacing. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know what but at the same time, but Dr. Eure is correct. The N-word not only is being thrown out just for African American students nowadays, even the white students, Latino students, for some reason are using it as a term endearment and things like that. So how do you address that and how do you approach it? This is where, as a parent group, you can come come together, because this is complex, right? Do you not only, if something just happens, well, a white student calls an N-word, somebody N-word, and a black student does the same. Let's just say that happens at the same time, at the same place, and who do you go deal with at that point, right? It gets complicated that way. So, and it can be very confusing for many people and cause more heartache if you don't handle it the right way. So that's a complex question. And to me, a restorative way of dealing with it is really the only way. You try to get people to fully understand the impact of what that word meant in order to stop them from going forward later on, because sometimes they're just saying anything is not a big deal, but it is. So, but you got to have a forum to be able to engage and have a conversation with the students, so that way they can feel the importance of it in hopes that they change for the future. But punishing alone, you got to hold people accountable, but even that's getting more complicated because everybody's using that word, and predominantly even our African American students are using it. As much as we try to tell them you can't use it, well, that's our culture. Well, no, not necessarily. Not necessarily. And then how confusing is that to everybody else? So we just gotta really talk through this.
Okay, we have what, 2 more, Angela?
Yep. Let me do our former school board member, Mr. Ralph Mature.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Ben. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Ben, for all of you, speaking out tonight and about all this. But I guess, Ben, my question for you to think about or talk about is, you've now been doing this about 20 years, I think 4 districts, right? Fresno, Santa Barbara, Santa Monica, and now Bellflower.
Yeah.
When I start looking at, groupings, we know this is all about student engagement. We want students to feel welcome, come to school, they want to learn, they feel that they're welcome.
Yes.
And they're getting every opportunity that everybody else gets. And so your story about the teacher who changed the dress code because that's what he thought, was the appropriate thing to do in his classroom, I think was very important.
Yeah.
And it made me think of, when I was on the board and we were talking about stuff, is the conversations about, which we haven't really talked about a bit, is principals. It's really about principals and teachers, and let's say central staff. Yeah. So over this period of time, are you seeing any difference in, because I know that's a lot of the work that you do is to try to, get the principals to be part of the team, and then for them to, to work with you to bring the teachers in.
Yes.
What do you see that's might be different or not, or what progress? Yeah. I know, you have an optimistic attitude about all this. So I know that you're you see good things going on. I'm just curious, when you go to a new place like Bellflower, do you see the same kinds of issues, or do you see that there's more of a good knowledge base of what we're trying to do to make this work?
Very good question. What Ralph is talking about, and I know this is coming macro, and it might not be an immediate thing you're saying you need now, but if you don't, but if you as parents and community members don't understand the complexity of what we're dealing with, you will always run to disappointment. Okay, you will always run to disappointment. I asked the question earlier, how do you solve homelessness? If I also ask all of you, go solve homelessness in Santa Monica, I mean, what are you going to say? Right now, so with that, with that, this thing now, you got to believe that homelessness can be solved, right? Or you got to believe that achievement gap could be solved, that you can support. So my optimism comes from what Dr. Pope got through talking about. I have experiences and knowledge of how Africans or African Americans are not what is being described by America. They can be very successful in there, and just like anybody, they're an asset to the world. Okay, they're an asset to the world. So the key of this is, so what I'm seeing, and all of this goes back to the question of how do you get the staff and the principals to engage in regular conversations to look at what is inequitable, not equitable, in front of them, and find solutions, and more importantly, discoveries that could change their personal self so they can do better, right? And do better. And I say do better because they're not saying I'm not doing this because I don't believe in it. They just don't know how. They don't know how. So how do we get them to know how? You got to engage in conversations, involve and unpack hidden assumptions, hidden barriers of actions. You know, you might be thinking you do the right thing, but you're not. This whole honors situation, and you know, you wouldn't know, but Santa Monica's actually doing a pretty good job. They're closing a lot of, they're doing a lot of stuff other districts can't even dare. You should watch what happened in Culver City right now. They're trying to move on something Santa Monica High did that is so important, which is eliminate tracking, where African Americans were often pigeonholed into a curriculum that we're going to exacerbate the achievement gap, which is by not providing the same access to the same curriculum. So, and really segregating students by the idea of honors and things like that. That staff at Samuel High, in their learning, because we told them about these issues and all that, they studied, they learned it, and epiphany came to their mind. They said, oh my God, we have been wrong all these years. And they went ahead and changed. And I supported them through it against fierce resistance from the community, right? So they won it out. I'm helping Kwok right now, who's the superintendent of Culver City, because he's doing the same thing, but he is under siege from the community, from everybody, including the staff, because he didn't have the staff buy into it, right? So think about it. You have two districts right next to each other. One does same thing, is successful doing it. The other will try the same thing, and it's a mess because what happened, the staff didn't buy into it because they didn't believe themselves, and they didn't go through that internal work to get it done. So to me, this is about taking people where they are and continuing to learn, because you can't just say, get all these people out and bring in new people. As I just mentioned, there are no teachers out there. Okay, and you're gonna have a limited amount of, you're saying, well, it's gotta be African-American teachers or Latinx students. Well, good luck in filling up the system with there isn't enough. So you got to go with who's there. And how do you do that? You got to get them to look internally, look externally, and identify what needs to happen. But if you don't have an optimistic view of it or believe that it can happen, it ain't gonna happen. Just like you're not gonna solve homelessness if no one believes it. It's not, you're not gonna do what's necessary. So I know that's a long-winded answer, Ralph, but it's a very good question. And but I do think SMMUSD, if I left any legacy here, it's about recognizing that racism exists and that we have to do some things, even though we might not know it, but we have to look at what is hidden. And I'm talking about institutional racism. I'm not talking about that a person is racist. I'm saying the system. If you're not cognizant of what you're doing in fueling this wrong system, you're just going to keep producing what it is. So you have to look at the system and say what is wrong with it, like the teachers did at Samuel High, and address it in that way. Anyway, hopefully that provides an answer.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Robbie, I just had, and I know we just had this one question with Kadiatu. She just had, like, I guess she felt like part of her question wasn't answered, so we kind of wanted to confirm. And this goes back to Dr. Eure and Dr. Drati. When an offense such as that with the N-word is done, I believe it's school policy that they do not let you know what the consequences are. Is that correct?
Yes, legally you can't, the offending student, we won't be able to, all you will ever know is that he was disciplined, he or she was disciplined. That's all you will ever know. How, when, and did you won't find that out. Just as your student, if your student offended something, we're not going to tell the world what they did. But these kids know, they're going to talk. If you really want to know, you would just talk to your peers and oh my God, they suspended such and such, but it can't come from us, but you can talk to your peers and they'll let you know.
Right. And then I'm going to connect her with, the parent groups as well, so we can follow up and give her the support that she needs. Okay, that's all I have on my end, Robbie.
Someone's hand is up. I don't know. Do you see that?
Oh, that's cool. That's Kadiatu. Yeah, and we just talked about her question.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's time to close and say goodnight. Is that me, Janet, or is that you? Okay, guys, check this out. This is how we do this. Y'all know how we do it. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank the speakers. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Drati, for taking the time. We know we don't have you, but we still got you. So thank you.
All right.
And Dr. Eure had to scoop, but he had a ball. And so he's going to reach out to the parent groups and do more of this, what we're doing today. So I really appreciate that. And then CRJ, we kind of have some direction and what things that we can do. So we thank you for that. So, okay, everybody unmute. Let's get ready to close this out. We can unmute everybody, Janet.
Unmute.
Okay.
Unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Aren't I? Okay. Okay. We'll do this. We always close out with an Asada chant, Asada Shakur. And it goes something like this, and my voice is like gone. So I will speak. It's like a call and response. I will say, and then you guys say, and then we get louder and we get louder, and we get louder and we go home. So it is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty
to fight for freedom.
It's our duty to win.
It is our
duty to win.
Love and protect one another.
It is our
love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Everybody in here is sleepy, so y'all need to wake up. It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and protect one another.
We must
Love and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Y'all help me out. Y'all hear my voice. Get loud with it. It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
Win.
Our duty to win.
Duty to win.
Let's love and protect one another.
Go, Craig.
Love and protect one another.
Other.
Craig already finished.
Protect one another.
Oh, we're done.
With our chains.
With their chains. Okay.
Nothing
to
very
write
much.
And then-
All right.
Yes. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Ben, for being here tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Ben.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon, okay? You have a good one.
Miss you. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.